Hey, welcome to SQL in the City Streamed. My name is Grant Fritchie. I am here with Ben Emmett.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Ben. I'm the product manager for SQL Monitor, which we're going to have a chat about today.
Product manager? What's a product manager do, Ben?
So most of the time is spent chatting to our customers, figuring out the sorts of things that are problematic for them, and helping work out the sort of direction that we should take our products in to be most useful to those customers.
I thought that was my job.
That's your job to tell me,
okay.
And then, yeah.
Okay, cool. Good. As long as he's not taking my job away, that's great. My name is Grant Fritchie. I do work for Redgate Software. Let's get going. What do you say? Now, when we started off this, Steve and I had some fun talking about 20 years, and we started off with some great movies, right? The great movies of 2009. You know, 2009 didn't always have just great movies. There were stinkers in 2009 too. And I want to talk about some of the stinkers. For example, the one thing, it would be great if we could forget, 2012. That would be great if that could just go away. And another movie that was really bad from 2009 is Terminator Salvation. Did you see it?
I did not see that.
Did you see 2012?
I did not.
Thank you. I'm so happy for you.
I've saved things.
You're a better person because you've not seen 2012. Trust me. Okay, and then I'm going to make some people very angry because there was another stinker, probably the single worst science fiction film in the last couple of decades, came out in 2009, and that was Avatar. Yeah, I've got people in the room freaking out.
You're factually incorrect.
I am factually dead on. I can sum up how bad this film was in one word: unobtainium.
That I will give you.
Oh. Anyway, so 2009, had some stinkers.
Anything good?
Well, no. In fact, we're gonna come right out and say it. 2009 had some stinkers, including a stinker from Redgate Software. Redgate Software released a product called SQL Response in 2009, and
looks beautiful.
I didn't work for Redgate Software, so I can say this. What were you guys thinking?
I was at university in 2009.
Oh, okay.
I have no responsibility.
He gets to dodge that bullet. That's great. Guys, unlike Avatar, which we're going to talk about in a minute, we get to release new versions of the software. And so subsequently over the years, they got rid of SQL Response and they released a new product called SQL Monitor. And well done, actually. That was...
It's come a little way.
It's not simply an improvement. It was just night and day, to the point where here we are in 2019, and SQL Monitor is arguably, and there's numbers to back this up, one of, if not the single most popular monitoring tool for SQL Server.
Right.
So well done. It only took 10 years. No, I'm kidding. They got it cleaned up in about 2, but it's really, we've come a really long way. I love this tool, and I've been writing about it for 8 years, and demoing it and helping you guys develop it. Although you guys do most of the work, I don't do that much. So let's talk about it, right? Let's talk about SQL Monitor. And I mean, so all jokes aside, how did you guys get to where you were doing this stuff?
So it's been really interesting, actually, because preparing for this has been a chance to chat to folks that have worked on SQL Monitor for like the last 10 years. There are some folks that are still at Redgate that were responsible for some of the things in that original version.
Let's not talk about that.
Absolutely. But it's been really interesting chatting to them about the history of the product, which I've only been involved with for sort of 4 or 5 years now.
Right.
Because whilst we absolutely have a plan right now, and that is rooted in an overall direction that we're trying to take the product in, many of the aspects of the overall design philosophy for SQL Monitor have remained pretty much unchanged for 10 years. So some of the things that we're trying to do with the product are exactly the same things that we set out to do back in 2009. And it just takes a little while to get there.
Well, I mean, so one of the first things that, it's on the slide, so people have probably already seen it. One of the first things is ease of use, right?
Right.
Make it simple to use.
And ease of use is a super dumb name for anything, because everything's easy to use. Right? My phone's easy to use, and the table, actually, that's like somewhat.
I say, don't
table
shake this table too much.
wobbly.
My laptop is.
I was going to say the table's meant to be easy to use. Maybe as well. My coffee machine's easy to use. But it doesn't really mean anything because ease of use is not inherently valuable just in its own right. Ease of use is only helpful because of what it enables for you. So if I think of that coffee machine, a coffee machine's ease of use is helpful in two ways. One is that when I get it out of the box, I want to be able to make coffee really quickly without having to read a manual. And there's nothing on this planet that's going to make me read the manual for it. So I hope that I'm going to be able to plug it in and go, because otherwise something's going to go wrong. But the second thing is that when I wake up in the morning and I deserve a coffee, I must have that coffee quickly. It must be possible to get that coffee into my hands within a few seconds. I don't want to be pressing buttons and working out what's going on. I also want it to be the case that if I've got guests around, they can help themselves to a coffee, because I'm not going to go make them one. They can. I like to think they can sort themselves out. So
so I'm not going to Ben's house.
But this is so if we take this torturous analogy no further and relate that to what we're talking about with monitoring.
Right.
The reason that ease of use matters isn't because being easy to use is particularly helpful in its own right. It's because what it enables.
What does it do?
Exactly. And what it means is that as a DBA, once you've decided, yes, I'm going to try to monitor my servers, from that moment, the process of installing, configuring, and learning how to use the software needs to be as quick as possible. So it's really core to what we're trying to achieve with SQL Monitor, that time to you getting some useful results out of it are really short. I don't know when you last spoke to a DBA that was like, oh yeah, I've got to spare 5 days to go on a training course, or
no, no, that doesn't happen.
So this is not a common experience, not just for the person that is responsible for initially taking a look at monitoring, but increasingly folks are part of a team of DBAs, and so you've got you looking at how to understand your servers using a monitoring product, and you want your experience of getting started to be short, but you also want other folks on your team to be able to do exactly the same.
Well, yeah, and also when things go wrong, right? When things go wrong, and you're like, okay, well, why is this query slow, or what happened? What was the error, or why is there a deadlock, or any of those things? Your boss is going to be standing in your cube, right? And you're going to need information very, very quickly, because usually they're standing in your cube, not outside your cube, not next to your cube, not by your desk, not nearby, in your cube, so you can smell their bad breath.
Right.
And my God, you need the information now.
Exactly. So just as I need caffeine right now, SQL Monitor's job is to make it incredibly easy to put the right information at your fingertips, and that doesn't mean all of the data in the universe to be flooding into your eyes.
All in one spot, yeah.
What it means is you need to be able to quickly drill down into the information that's going to matter to you. So for example, if I were to drill into one server, I might choose to look at the CPU usage for a particular server here, and you have your scroll wheel backwards, which is...
Yeah, he has to use my laptop. I feel sorry for him, yeah.
But what you might do is take a look at something like CPU usage. I'll take a look at the CPU usage for SQL Server Central. You might know that there's a bit of a spike in CPU usage at this point in time around 3 o'clock.
Yep.
But what SQL Monitor is going to do is make it really easy in just a few clicks to do things like compare that to previous periods. Look at how does that compare to that same period of time over the last 10 days. And in just a few clicks right at your fingertips, you're able to look at how those kind of patterns of behavior have performed, such that you can say to your boss, no, it's kind of fine, get out.
Yeah, this is normal. This is what happens at 2 a.m. By the way, I use the same demo all the time on the exact same 2 a.m. thing, because we can go and explain, hey, by the way, this is normal, and we know what's going on at 2 a.m. is when there's a backup process and a data load process that runs 1, 2.
Right.
And ta-da, 1, 2, you've got a whole bunch of CPU there that's more than normal. Also, by the way, if you look in there, there's going to be more blocking than normal at that point. But it is a normal part of our process, so because we're able to identify that from monitor.
Exactly.
I mean,
and so it's part of a philosophy of saying we want that data to be intuitively available to you, so
sure.
that it's just quick to uncover. So you've got folks that might take manual approaches where they're collecting some of the right sorts of data that you might want to go analyze to try and understand whether there's been a problem, and that's a helpful first step.
Exactly.
But unless you can get to it in 3 clicks when an emergency is happening.
When things are on fire, yeah. I mean, if you'll notice on the front page, I mean, everybody does, red's bad, green's good, yellow is meh. But the idea here is that, and the reason so many people do it this way is because this is very informative, very quick, very easy to understand, an immediate, how are things behaving right now? And so you can see that there are some servers that are offline, machines that are unreachable. Stuff like this. This might be no big deal. What is that, dev or test? So those are test servers, right? Do we care that the test servers are offline? Maybe, maybe not. But fine. That's the test system. The production system and the Azure system are both online, so we're all comfy, right?
Right.
Cool. So back to the slide, right?
Yeah. So there's this first strand of SQL Monitor's design philosophy, which is about that simplicity of use in order to get up and running quickly and in order to be able to solve problems quickly.
Sure.
The second piece, which has remained pretty well constant since 2008, 2009, is to take a modern web-based approach to things.
Which, by the way, in 2008 I wasn't crazy about.
Right, but and then the future happened, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and then things changed.
And so you've got I'm just being reminded that there's a squeaky floorboard so I'm going to stand more still. So you look back to 2009, and folks were starting to realize that the technology world is changing a bit.
Oh, yeah.
And so folks that would previously be spending their days at a desk in a cube looking at screens, their world was changing a bit.
Sure.
So they were starting to be able to do things from home. They were starting to be able to do things on horseback, indeed, on some mobile devices. It became the norm that DBAs would expect to be able to conduct their business from anywhere that they were.
Right, whether they were on horseback in Colorado or floating around in space.
Right. So we kind of recognized that everyone's got a browser in their pocket, and
sure.
This has been true for many years. And so the days of wanting to use a kind of Windows desktop-based monitoring approach with kind of behind us, right? So you want to be able to access this information from anywhere. You've got Steve there.
Yeah, for those who don't know, this is Steve Jones on I think one of his horses, or at least one of the horses that he boards on his farm. A racehorse, okay.
My wife's horse.
Oh, his wife's horse, sorry. His wife's horse. I don't know if she's watching. I may or may not be in trouble. But anyway, it's his wife's horse that he's on. And then DBA Space was a contest that Redgate ran a few years ago.
We even have a very cool mission patch still to this day.
I've got one of those. I kept that. That was neat.
I think they're still super cool. But the point about this web-based approach is that you can start to look at what's going on in your estate from anywhere in the world.
Right.
And so so some folks are going to be on call 24/7. Not everyone is, but even the folks that are on call maybe part of the time might need to go check out an incident when they're in a bar, or maybe they're asleep, maybe it's 3 a.m. And an approach that allows you to get access to your information from a mobile phone means the difference between waking up at 3 a.m., walking downstairs, putting on getting a cup of tea going, getting your laptop open, VPNing into a work network, then trying to diagnose a problem, maybe discovering that nothing was going wrong at all, versus being able to roll over, get your mobile phone, take a look and realize, oh, yeah, that looks fine, don't worry. I can wait till the morning to deal with that and go right back to sleep. That's the difference And then maybe it's hard to get back to sleep after you've walked downstairs and made yourself a cup of emergency coffee, you know?
Yeah, no kidding.
So you end up having not just a difference in whether it's enjoyable to use for a moment,
right.
but do you get a good night's sleep because it's just a materially different way of working?
Well, switch back over to the app again, to the web page again. And I'm on a web page, everyone. I mean, this is a web page, and all these servers that we've got. I mean, the whole idea here is that, you know, we were saying I'm looking at test, I'm looking at prod, I'm looking at Azure. This is a single pane of glass, right? And it's a single pane of glass through a web interface. So not only you know, am I looking for one thing to see all the stuff that I'm working on, but more importantly, I'm looking at a format that I can get at from my tablet, I can get at from my laptop, I can get it from my phone, but also anyone who needs to can get this. There's not like apps that we're going to install or anything.
Right.
And further, what we're showing you right now is a live view of monitor.redgate.com. And if you go and look up monitor.redgate.com right now, you'll see what I'm seeing. And you guys can go in and see live versions of this and check it out yourself. But that kind of setup allows you to do similar stuff. I mean, I would not put your production servers out live on the internet like we're doing. That would be bad, but for any number of reasons. But you know, you get the idea. You can expose this information any way you need to because it's designed around the modern interface.
And that, I guess, leads on really neatly into almost planned.
Hey, almost like we thought about this.
So that leads really neatly into an approach that is that I'm not going to claim to have been 10 years in the making, but it's something that's been really top of mind for us over the last few years, which is thinking of database DevOps as a really integral part of the way that we think about monitoring.
Sure.
So one of the really core components of DevOps is to have folks in that might have responsibilities closer to operational responsibilities share the same view of the world that folks that are in development have. That means that people need to have the same insight into the same environment.
Same information, same language, so that everybody's working off the same background in order to deliver, you know, DevOps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, you start to hit issues when if you have a DBA that has one view of the world and understands that that thing A is happening, and they need to have a discussion with the development team who have a different view of the world, which indicates to them that thing B is happening.
Right.
That's a surefire recipe for conflict.
Well, I mean, monitoring is. I've got a story on monitoring. I always have stories. I've got a story on monitoring. We used to hit a lot of issues with our dev team. You know, it's like, hey, the database is slow. We get that all the time.
Right.
And we didn't have really good monitoring in place when we were starting to get these. We actually built out our monitoring and got monitoring tools like this in support of being able to have that argument, because in fact the database is never the problem, it's always the app. You knew that, right? Okay.
Yeah.
It's always the app.
Totally.
So we actually had to build out monitoring and get monitoring tools in so that we could gather the information and go to the developers and go, well, our queries are running this fast. So is that how fast you're seeing it? Oh no, you're not seeing it that fast? Okay, well then obviously the bottleneck lies elsewhere. So let's figure that out, right? And figure it out together, you know, because it's all about DevOps.
It's hard to overstate just how important it is to have different people have the same view of the same information.
Right.
And we try and make that that as seamless as possible. So if I were to take a look at a server on SQL Monitor, and this does so on monitor.redgate.com, this does actually relate back to that ease of use and the simplicity of understanding SQL Monitor. So any developer can just access this URL. You can do that without having to install anything. But we also try and make it really easy for folks that might have less direct experience with the internals of SQL Server to understand what's going on. So you might, as a developer, be looking at this kind of information and you see, well, there are async network I/O waits, and to most DBAs that's going to be a weight that they're familiar with and concepts that they're familiar with, but to many folks in development teams that's going to be quite an unfamiliar thing. And so we try and embed right inside SQL Monitor this kind of assistance that gives short summaries of these kinds of technical SQL Server specific concepts to make it more accessible to folks that are in development teams who don't have that deep internals experience with SQL Server. You want to make it possible to have access to that kind of information.
Right, and also just fantastic guidance, just walking you through what does this mean, so that you can actually then follow up and look at other things,
right.
Including like, hey, go and take a look at these files, go and look
right.
and take a look at these DMVs. The guidance there is for the accidental DBA, the developer. I mean, pretty much anybody who's like not necessarily, Kalen Delaney can get in here and start figuring stuff out.
Right, and you don't need necessarily to make this a free-for-all, right? So you can.
Oh yeah, and you wouldn't necessarily expose this to non, depending on GDPR and all kinds of other compliance issues, but stuff like, I'll go to where you're getting ready to go to.
We
were there.
You've got in this instance of SQL Monitor. If we take a look at this overview screen, you'll see we've got dozens of servers here. I'll just make this smaller so you can see. We've got a few dozen servers right here. I don't necessarily want every developer to have access to all of those, but you can use things like granular permission controls inside SQL Monitor to say, well, I want this development team to have access to this instance because that is running the application that team is responsible for. Do I want them to have access to the set of servers that are hosting a bunch of finance information? No, not so much.
No, not so much. But we're also monitoring non-production servers. So these are, hang on, go zoom in, do what I tell you to do. There we go. Took long enough. These are puppetized test servers, right? So this is very much secondary servers, but we're set up for monitoring so that the development teams can get information that they need, similar to what we're going to be getting from a production server, not really any different.
Exactly.
And speaking of DevOps, let's just go right to it.
So we also recognize that you've got folks in development teams.
Machine.
Yeah, let's just go back.
Okay, sorry, my bad. I picked the wrong machine. That's on me.
So you also want to recognize that you've got folks in development teams that are deploying to these environments. And those deployments are a really common cause of incidents in production.
Sure.
We try and make that easy to understand.
So we've got the ability to take our other tooling like SQL Change Automation, SQL Source Control, and when deployments occur, we can put markers down so we know that it's happened, a new version of SQL Server, the version is marked, the changes that have been introduced are there, and we can then use monitoring as part of our development process. So we know that this release has gone out the door and it's had this or that effect, good, bad, otherwise. We know what's happening. So it's just all right there. Again, that same concept of a single pane of glass to expose the information we need where it needs to be exposed very directly. Let me just get rid of this because that's irritating me. There we go.
Yeah, so it's all part of that view of trying to think of development teams, operations teams, including which include DBAs, as part of the same team who have got the same responsibility to ensure that production is performing as you would hope it would.
Sure. And then the last thing that you guys are doing from your design philosophy is this statewide visibility. Are we talking about that now, or are we going to talk about that in a minute?
Let's talk about it right now.
Really? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think so.
You're in charge.
So this
I don't know nothing, man. I just work here.
And this is something that we've focused on increasingly over the last couple of years. So by statewide visibility, what we mean is that if you have a DBA that is responsible for, let's say you're responsible for 3 servers, the needs that you have when you're trying to analyze the availability and the performance of those servers are materially different to the needs of a DBA that is responsible for 50 servers, 100 servers, even 1,000 servers. So the kind of deep dive approach that you might take to looking at one server is not scalable to the sorts of investigations or the sorts of overviews that you might want to see when you're responsible for that much larger number of servers. It's just not going to work for you. No one's got time to click through 50 servers one by one and see how each of them are doing it. That's just not a way you can work. So we And surveys that we've done have highlighted the increasing size of SQL Server estates. So just earlier this year, we asked just over 800 DBAs a load of things about their estates, including monitoring, and 45% of those said that they're expecting the size of their SQL Server estate to grow over the next 12 months.
Yep.
Only 10% thought that estate size was going to shrink, and yet how many of those people...
And that 10% was wrong.
Right. They're in for a surprise. And I guess how many folks do you know where, as that estate size grows, they're hiring DBAs at an equivalent rate?
No.
Left, right, and center.
That's not how it works.
It is not. And so, like other folks in IoT departments, DBAs are being asked to look after larger estates and get more done and be more productive, but without increasing levels of staff. So you have to have capabilities to understand more easily what's going on across an entire environment, rather than take this kind of server by server approach. And so when we talk about statewide visibility, what we're talking about here is abilities to, at a glance, understand how is my entire estate doing.
Sure.
That sometimes means on a dashboard, so that I can just say, hey, what's on fire right now, without having to check one by one. Sometimes it means more proactive approaches, though, to figuring out what's going on.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about the fact that, hey, guess what? We've released some new software, right? 19.1. We've got new stuff coming out the door.
9.1.
9? 19? I don't know. I've lost
It's
track.
2019.
The years are confusing me. I'm old. It's great. The gray hair is real. So speaking of estate management, we've released new product, new tooling in and around estate management, right?
Right.
I'm going straight over to it because I love this stuff.
I would go to the...
Oh yeah. Sorry, wrong
that's
instance. Let me get back on that.
Instance.
That was our test instance. This is the live instance that you guys can look at with me. So what we've got here is estate management, and the idea on estate management is you're managing 100 servers, not one.
Right.
1,000 servers, not one. And you're going to want to know information about a broad swath of those servers now, not later, and certainly not, one at a time. Let me click on this one and see what it looks like. Let me click on this one and see what it looks like. So for example, the versions, that's a big one. Where are you at? Are you RTM, which a lot of these are well, CU16, never mind. I'm kind of going, man, we need to upgrade. But no, a lot of these are patched. They're up to date, a lot of them, and you can see when their expiration is, which is great. All right in a single pane of glass, all the servers, all at once, including rolled up, and you can group them. You can break them down if you don't want to look at everything. You could just look at production. However you want to do it, the information is there. And
this information is automatically updated all the time. So as soon as a new version of SQL Server is released, that is a new update, SQL Monitor automatically retrieves that information, and you can start to see, hey, what do I need to go?
We're out of date. Yeah, there's a new SP, if they ever release an SP. There's a new CU, and so yeah, we've got that stuff going. But that's not all, right? That's just the start of the enterprise management. We're also looking at disk usage. I know, and I pushed hard for this because the biggest problem that I ran into as a DBA, day on day, week on week, at 3 a.m. was disk management. It was just this non-stop nightmare. There's reasons why, it's not my fault. But anyway, it wasn't. They're laughing at me. It's not cool. Anyway, we've got this thing now where we're keeping an eye across all your disks, and we're making some simple projections, and we're saying, hey, you know what? You might run out of space on this one at the current growth rate. And so now you've got warning. We know that in 3 months, in 6 months, we're looking at disk space usage issues. Whereas, where I was just finding them on the fly because, at 3 a.m. the log was full, or at 3 a.m. the disk file was full, or at 3 a.m. the backup file was full. Why does it always happen at 3 a.m.? I don't know. But it does. Trust me, it always happens.
The universe just hates you.
Regardless of time zone. It happens at 3 a.m.
And so you've got for 10 years now, SQL Monitor will be happy to tell you about disks that are running low on space.
Right.
But this kind of projection and ability to look forward allows you to take a much more proactive approach to monitoring, so that instead of waiting for you to be on the precipice of disaster, you do not want a full drive.
Absolutely.
You can look forward and say, hey, 2 months from now, I'm going to run
And
out.
looking across the whole estate at once.
Right.
I mean, that's a huge win. I love it. And we're not done there. We've also set up backups for the same kind of idea, so that we've got, what your recovery point objectives are, which databases are meeting those, which databases are not. You know what I mean? And yay, it's all green. That's awesome. But we've got a single place, and again, a single spot to go and track down this information. I'm not clicking through to we've only got, 25 servers here, 30 servers?
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, it's not that many, but I'm not clicking through to 30 servers. I'm looking at 30 servers all at once, and I can see across them all of the behaviors that I care about.
Exactly, and it's also a really helpful way to have a conversation with IT leaders about the recovery point objectives that you're targeted on. So you get to say at the using this kind of information, you get to say over the last month, if things had gone wrong at the worst possible moment, how much data loss was I exposed to?
Yeah, how much could we lose? Right, exactly. That's amazing. And we're still not done. Again, across the estate, the whole idea is that this is managing your estate. We're also looking at SQL agent jobs, the jobs that have run, the number of executions, how many of them have been successful, yay, which ones have failed, and our success rate, and all in a way that, again, exposes that broad swath of information, an enterprise view of the information, as well as details, right? What servers have had them, and if you look at the server, you can actually then load up and get the details of that server, what steps, what jobs, how long they took. I mean, it's just fantastic.
Right, and so none of this is to say that drill down isn't important. It's,
no.
It's absolutely important having discovered
vital.
an issue.
Yeah.
But you need to start with a view of everything to help you identify where are the problem areas. And from that, yeah, sure, then we need to go and do some deep dive and understand what's going wrong. But it starts with understanding the estate as a whole rather than a server by server view, which doesn't scale.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Let's go back to here, because I want to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. The cloud's huge. I mean, and if you're not looking at it right now, what are you thinking? The fact is that the cloud is a major part of everything that we do. It's not just a question of some services maybe, but that's where a lot of our data lives, more and more of it all the time.
Right.
And we're looking at more and more things like, Azure SQL database, just as an example. But all kinds of other places where there's cloud data, and we have to be cognizant of the fact that this stuff matters in terms of monitoring as much as our on-premises matters. 2 reasons for this. One, performance is still an issue. No, if you go to the cloud, there's nothing magical about it. It's a server. Yeah, okay, it's a great server with some really cool technology and some amazing stuff, but it's still just a server. And you probably ought to be monitoring it. Second, do you trust Microsoft? Frankly, I do. But I have no problem saying trust but verify. And so we monitor in order to keep an eye on what's going on there and having the ability to understand what's happening.
Right.
Does SQL Monitor give us any of that kind of stuff?
It does. What a coincidence that you would ask. It does. So we now monitor Azure SQL database in exactly the same way that we monitor on-premise SQL servers. The idea here is to try and provide the DBA who's responsible for all flavors of SQL Server. It's not the DBA's job to look after SQL Server when it's running in this exact place. It's the DBA's job to care about SQL Server wherever
it's at. Right, exactly.
And for more and more DBAs, that means in Azure SQL database. So we look at that kind of information in exactly the same way that we would look at anything else. So if I were to start on this overview screen, just as we have servers up at the top here, and these top 3 servers, we also show Azure SQL databases on this middle row. In fact, 2 of these are pools, elastic pools of SQL Server databases. commonly used. Oh, that's right click.
Yeah.
Commonly, so being used commonly to balance resources across multiple databases. But we make this look and feel exactly the same as what you're looking at with on-premise SQL Server.
Yeah, except that says DTU.
It does, and this is because this is a way of measuring resource usage, which a lot of the time Azure SQL database is charged by. So this is showing the DTU usage for an entire pool rather than for a single database. But I can see any databases that are inside that elastic pool. I can then click through. And then I can see information for this Azure SQL database in exactly the same way that I might see information for an on-premise SQL Server. So I see the same information about top queries, weights, other SQL Server metrics as well. It's trying to give a DBA that has experience of on-premise SQL Server monitoring and to be able to transport that knowledge totally transparently to getting that same view of Azure SQL database.
Excellent. That's cool. I'm happy because I really love the cloud. I can't lie. It's very entertaining for me. So Alert API, what are we doing?
Alert API. So this is recognizing that as DBAs are responsible for increasing numbers of servers, the ways of not just consuming information from those, but managing the way that you monitor those servers also needs to change.
Right,
so
you just turn off all the alerts because they make too much noise.
Sure, why not? No.
Okay.
So what you find as you start to manage 100 servers instead of 5 servers is that the ways that you might configure things need to change as well.
Right.
So increasingly DBAs use PowerShell to manage their environments, and we think that the same kind of approaches to automation should remain true of approaches to monitoring and of configuring monitoring.
Okay. Well, let's go to this one. Why not? I'm just going to show off a little bit. So what we've got here is if we go, let me go back to Monitor for 1 second. You can configure your own alerts, and did I click on it? There we go. You can configure your own alerts, and we've got all kinds of ways to mess about with those. Where are they? Custom metrics and alert settings. There we go.
Top.
Yeah, no, I wanted to go to the metrics.
Okay.
Go from there. You can define a custom metric and create it, and these can be put together any way you need to. Create a SQL statement, bring data back, put together extended events, bring data back, all kinds of cool stuff. But then the alerting, when you're managing 2-5 servers, you set up the alerts and off you go. I mean, and it's pretty simple. The alerts that are there, let's go to the alert settings. It's all pretty straightforward stuff. Disk space, as you would expect, deadlocks, errors, CPU utilization, all that fun stuff. And you set this up. And when we've got 5 or 10 servers, we can very easily kind of step through these things and fix them. But when you've got 100 or 1,000 or more like that, it gets crazy real fast. So we've looked at the fact that most people are doing management through PowerShell. And you can now say, oh, I don't know, give me all the instances. And there's now PowerShell commands to pull together all of the instances. And once we're doing that, we've got, say, disable disk alert for C drive, just as an example. We can walk through, get all the machines, get them all listed out, find all the ones that have a C drive, turn off the alert, and if I've got 1,000 servers to do this on, it's a little bit of PowerShell code, fire that off, and yeehaw, we win.
Right, and maybe you don't want to turn it off on all of those servers. Maybe you want to write your own filtering and
customize exactly, like. Yeah.
And this is where PowerShell makes that easy in a way that doing all of this.
Yeah, and these are just examples. Yeah, I should have made that a little bit more clear up front. These are just examples because we really can just, once you're coding, you start doing things the way you want to. And frankly, in the DevOps world, we're all coders, whether you want to be or not. You're a coder. DBAs, you're coders too. They hate that. Okay, so we've gotten all these new cool toys. This is great. Well, I mean, we're going to go forward and do new things, right?
Right.
I mean, just like James Cameron, he's going to take another bite at the apple, guys. Don't let him. And I'm not going to finish this on a bad note. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about the fact that we've got this great thing called the State of SQL Server Monitoring, and we've compiled, how many was it again?
It's just over 800.
800, just over 800 people responded. That's great. And there's a link down below. You guys can get it. But it's available on our website. And it put together all this information about monitoring and the state of monitoring today. And my fascination with it is the biggest challenges facing the estate, facing the large companies, are performance issues, the ability to scale, security and protection, and available server space. And gosh darn it, isn't that what we've just been talking about for the last 40 minutes or so? Yeah, I mean, because frankly, we're orienting this stuff based on the feedback we get. I mean, this isn't, we're not just making things up, guys, although we can do that too. But we're really oriented based on data. I mean, we're using data to make these decisions. Cool, that's great to hear. I'm excited about that. Hey, Louise, do we have any questions? She's not ready.
There's a TV that's gone to sleep somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think, is there a way for folks to send in questions that we've?
Yes, they can do it on the chat.
Yeah, so there's a chat, what, on Facebook?
On the hub page.
Oh, on the hub page. Oh, on the hub page. Yeah, sorry. On the hub page, using your user account, you can type in a question. There was one earlier. I saw one earlier.
The question was about, is there anything in the roadmap for a SQL Monitor mobile?
I'll repeat it. They can't hear you. And the thing was, is there anything on the roadmap for a SQL Monitor app?
I can't get this right. We're not intending to work on an app. The reason being that while we think it's really important to be able to use SQL Monitor on a mobile phone, it works just great in Chrome on your mobile. So you can do this already. So you can already do this. We think that for most folks, that's the best way of doing things. Personally, I get kind of mad at having to install apps for every last thing, for every new site. It's a website. It's a website. You should be able to see it in a browser, and so we work hard to make sure that that is possible. But
yeah. I'm not doing it in Chrome. I guess I'm not a cool kid. I'm doing it in Microsoft Edge on my Android. But here it comes. I'm in the UK, so my phone's a little slower than normal, but it's coming up. Come on, hurry up. People need to see this. Hang on, here we go. It's almost there. 1 second.
Should be using Chrome.
Yeah, I should be using Chrome.
okay, let's get it.
Here it comes. All right, so there, you guys can see that. It's loading up. It's still a little slow, but this is loading up the monitor on my Edge on my phone, and this is all live, by the way. There. Oops, I hit back.
Online.
You guys don't want to see the book I was looking at.
Is that online?
Not that it's bad. It's just not appropriate. Wait, that sounds bad too. It wasn't. Now I have to show it. It's Monster Hunter Siege is the book I was looking at.
We're gonna have to,
science fiction.
We're going to have to edit
Safe.
something out. I hope whatever was on those notifications.
Anyway.
Look awkward.
Wow, we went down a hole. Are there any other questions? Save us, Louise.
Oh, no.
We wanted to save 3 minutes there at the end for questions, and man, I messed that up badly.
Anything on the roadmap for non-SQL databases like Oracle or MySQL?
There are non-SQL databases? Oh, sorry, kidding.
We're not planning to do anything outside of SQL Server for SQL Monitor at the minute.
Yeah, Steve's given us one of these, but anything else?
Any plans to make SQL Monitor SaaS?
Oh, are you guys going to go for SaaS compliant? Software as a service. I think that's what you're going for, yes. Software as a service.
We're not right now planning to do that, so you can host SQL Monitor very easily in Azure or AWS.
Right.
We're not intending to roll out a version which we host on your behalf at the minute.
Oh, I want that personally, but yeah. Oh well, I'll have that fight another day. Any other questions?
I think we're out of.
If not, I think we're just about out of time. Cool. Let's just wrap this up. I'm excited. Oh, go ahead.
No.
I don't think we have
You're
any.
good. I was just
the next thing up is we're going to be talking about I think it's Steve's going to be stop completing tasks and start delivering business value is our next session. But other than that, I mean, thanks a lot, Ben. Thanks for all your work you've done on SQL Monitor. I mean, it's been great over the last few years. Very excited about all the cool stuff coming out.
It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, I'm not having you today. We're in this together. All right, that's it. Thanks a lot. We had a good time.